Paris is perhaps the most photographed city in the world. Millions of images were born here. Millions of eyes have crossed these streets trying to capture its beauty. And yet, some cities only reveal their true identity when they encounter someone capable of seeing beyond what everyone else sees. In the photographs of Emerson Lima, Paris ceases to be merely scenery and becomes atmosphere, cinema, memory. His gaze does not search only for monuments. It searches for narrative. It searches for visual silence. It searches for what exists between the accelerated movement of the city and the small human moments that usually go unnoticed. There is something of the French humanist tradition within these images. A silent observation of the city, inevitably dialoguing with photographers such as Henri Cartier-Bresson, Robert Doisneau, and Brassai. But the gaze of Emerson Lima never feels trapped in nostalgia.
There is something profoundly contemporary in the way he observes Paris. The black and white used by the artist does not function merely as an aesthetic choice. It functions as language. By removing the distraction of color, Emerson guides the eye toward texture, contrast, depth, and emotion. Observe the photograph of the bicycle crossing the street beneath the Parisian rain. Nothing feels constructed. And perhaps that is exactly why the image feels so powerful. The movement of the fabric carried by the wind, the reflections on the wet asphalt, the depth created by the cars in the background. Everything seems to exist precisely at the limit between chance and composition. Henri Cartier-Bresson, one of the greatest references in humanist photography and an undeniable influence within Parisian visual tradition, believed that composition is not born only from geometry, but from the human instant that exists within it. And within the photographs of Emerson Lima, that sensitivity appears in a very particular way. Not as aesthetic reproduction, but as an understanding of time, presence, and the exact moment when emotion and composition begin to coexist inside the same image.
There is visual rhythm in this photograph. There is movement. There is cinema. In many moments, Paris ceases to feel like a city photographed and begins to feel like a setting guided by the gaze of a film director. The Eiffel Tower appears distant, silent, almost melancholic. Not as a tourist symbol, but as a character. The moon positioned beside the metallic structure creates an extraordinarily sophisticated visual balance. It is a silent composition, minimalist, almost noir.
But Emerson does not attempt to reproduce classic Paris. He discovers his own Paris. A less touristic Paris, more human, more contemplative. At Notre Dame, the artist uses architectural lines with extraordinary precision. The structures guide the eye. The shadows create depth. And the sculptures seem to silently observe the city below. This is not merely architectural photography, it is emotional photography. There is a very clear understanding of composition within these images. Leading lines, visual weight, negative space, balance between light and shadow. But what is most interesting is that technique never appears above emotion. Technique merely sustains the gaze. This becomes even more evident throughout the human photographs scattered across the essay. An elderly woman slowly walking through the crowd. A man crossing the street alone. A dog silently accompanying its owner through the cold streets of Paris. Nothing seems extraordinary, and perhaps that is exactly why everything feels so true. As in the great humanist photographs of the 20th century, the center of these images is never merely the city. It is the human presence within it. Even the Louvre appears less as a tourist symbol and more as a human experience. Even the Mona Lisa appears silent. Emerson Lima seems to understand something rare. Cities are made less of monuments and more of people.